I remember one time it was a snowstorm and I had to go to an open house in Gladwin. And I drove all the way there. It was like this horrible snow ice storm. I got there, and in Gladwin, they don't have ELBs for the most part. It was a combination. It was in a frozen block of ice.
Welcome back to the Modern Agent Podcast. My name is Logan Ricchetti with Modern Realty. This podcast is a combination of thoughts and opinions on the real estate market in Midland, Michigan with our local real estate agents from Modern Realty. Our mission is to create informed and confident buyer and seller clients, so tune in to learn more about Midland's real estate market.
All right, welcome back to the Modern Agent Podcast. I'm Kirsty Krompetz, and I'm here with Kyle Boxey. We're just going to start things out by introducing ourselves and who we are as people.
Sounds good. Happy to be here. Let's do it.
All right, you go first. Tell us about yourself and how long you've been doing real estate.
Okay, so I got into real estate at the end of 2016, and I pretty much just joined up with Modern right away and hit the ground running ever since.
I have been doing this for 6 years, since 2018, and it feels like an eternity.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. Like, I look back now and I'm like, okay, you're about to finish your 7th year. Where did the time go, you know?
Started as young pups, now we've aged.
Right. We're vetted into the business.
All right, so other than real estate, give us a little bit more insight of who you are as a person, your hobbies. I know that you are an extraordinaire at making videos, so maybe a little bit more on that.
Yeah, for sure. So outside of real estate, that's a pretty tight window, as you know, being a full-time agent.
And being a parent.
Yep, I'm a parent. So I have 3 kids, a couple of dogs, a cat, 2 bunnies. There's a lot going on at home. And then, yeah, I love creating videos. It's just a passion, a hobby of mine. So these past couple of years now, I've been doing like a lot of networking with local business owners and just kind of having fun with it. I think, you know, some people have asked me or have mentioned like, hey, you should really get into like doing video stuff full time. And of course, like, while that has been a consideration in my head, it just, to me, wouldn't feel as like enjoyable, I think. Like, I love helping people through the real estate transaction. You know, I've been doing it for a really long time, and I think I've always wanted to keep that video aspect separate from work just because of how much I enjoy it. So I've been kind of going around for a while, and I can use that in a way to hang out with my kids all the time because we're going to like seasonal festivals or different local businesses, and we're enjoying what they have to offer. And then I can kind of use that video skill set to just showcase our local businesses, kind of help promote them. And so, like, I would say it's been pretty tight timeline between work-life balance. You know, I love spending time with my kids. That's like my number one, as much as I can. So yeah, obviously real estate, when you're full-time, you're fully submerged into all kinds of things coming up at random. How do you balance that, and what do you like to do when on your own time?
I try to just not panic all day, every day with trying to fit it all into one, with kids doing sports, pick up, drop off, all of that stuff. My kids are not above going with me to sit in a car somewhere to show a house or drop keys off or meet somebody. That's just kind of part of life. And luckily for my kids, they're used to it because both sides are constantly running around and doing random things. So I have to ground myself sometimes by picking up a book and just not thinking about all the things burning down my life.
Right.
But we make it work. It's not too terrible, but
definitely.
It is what it is.
So we've both been with Modern for quite a while now. What are your favorite things about being a part of the Modern team?
It's definitely the family aspect of the team. Like, there's no drama. There's no like competition where like anybody's beefing or anything like that. Like, everyone's having a good time all the time. If I have an issue, I can call anyone in our office and they are going to pick up the phone and be helpful. Our listing department is phenomenal. I mean, sometimes I feel like we owe them a lot more than they get because we drop a lot on them.
We do. We do.
And they handle it with grace, and I am so thankful for the team that we have. What about you?
Yeah, and I feel the same way. And I was actually, when I was thinking about that, it reminds me back, like I think I was around 18. You remember Damon's Bar and Grill? It makes me think of working there. I was there for a couple of years, and shout out to Al Stanford. We used to call him the big dude. But he was an amazing leader in the kitchen and just kind of reminds me of the same family-oriented feeling I used to get back then that I haven't really had since starting at Modern, where everybody's always rallying together, lifting each other up, like, before, whether it's changes in the industry or everything else we've been going through. So I love how Modern has always had the huddles and the boot camping for the agents and making sure that everybody's fully prepared for success. So early on, that was huge to me. Like, I just didn't really want to talk to anybody else. I talked to Kevin, I talked to Logan, and I just felt like this is where I got to be. And ever since then, it was definitely the best decision I think I could have made, for sure.
That's kind of how I feel about the Modern thing. Is I met with Logan. I didn't meet with anyone else. I didn't have a real estate license, and it just fit. And then coming into it and being instantly just brought in, having the assistants, I can't imagine being anywhere else.
Right.
And, I could never repay all the things that I've learned to Modern.
Yeah.
So I could never imagine leaving and not having this family that, has really built us up to the people that we are in this industry. So
For sure.
and that's kind of this whole industry as a whole. You have all these relationships that are just, wonderful, that you could never thank somebody enough for, like clients that you've met over the years who now are just family to you, brought in as a complete stranger. I'm sure you have people like that you have met along the way.
Oh, yeah. I think just navigating the buying process, or either side, whether it's seller or buyer, you're with these people for a pretty good chunk of time, okay? And we can just average it at like a 30 to 40-day period for a transaction. But even before then, you meet a client, you teach them. That's our big thing at Modern, is creating informed and confident buyers and sellers. So from that point on, I think that you establish a good friendship relationship early on, just kind of being someone there to guide and help teach them or get them where they want to be ready for the next step. And so I think it's really easy to become friends with people through that process. Now, from like a family standpoint, it makes me think of when you go through a transaction and there's a lot of hurdles you have to overcome, or you might have different transactions depending on other deals closing. Like I have some clients right now where we've kind of gone through this domino effect of selling their house contingent upon finding housing, and then we found them a house contingent, the other sellers contingent upon finding housing.
It's a long journey.
You get into something like that where there's so much to facilitate that by the end of it, you spend so much time together and you're going through so many big decisions that you just feel like you're part of the family at that point. I have couples I show houses to where their kids are running around and they're always telling me, like, they want to know, hey, are we going to see Mr. Kyle today? Are we going to see Mr. Kyle today? 'Cause
that's like the best part, is when the kids love you and like are excited to see you. I had a friend of mine who I was just showing houses to, and she has 2 young boys. And every time I'd show him a house, her oldest son always gave me a compliment about how I looked. You look so beautiful today. I'm like, thank you so much. I'm like, that is so nice of you. Yeah. But it's just one of those things that I think, buyers and sellers don't understand, that it does mean something to us. And we want to see you happy and successful in this whole transaction. We're not just saying it because, yes, you're hired us, but we genuinely care about you and your family and want your family to feel safe and secure in your new home. It's just kind of part of the process is, eventually, you're going to have feelings for these people, and you don't actually, sometimes you don't stop to actually think about the relationship you've, built over those months together. You kind of don't appreciate it. And then there's the ones that, like, really get a strong hold on your heart that become like really part of your family, who check on you still, even though you haven't done a deal with them in a couple years, but they still ask how your kids are doing, and you just want to check in with them.
Yeah, and a big part of that, I mean, realistically, is from that point on, after we've gone through that process, we've closed the deal, it's huge for us as agents to nurture that relationship, because referrals are the lifeline of our business. And that goes back to what you were saying about how important it is that we have raving fans and we have family after that, great long-lasting friendships because of that as well.
Well, and that's another great part about Modern as a whole, is we have our birthday party every year, so we get to bring back all those familiar faces and the people that we have grown these relationships with. It's always a fun time to see their kids and see them and catch up on their lives, whether they're looking to get into a real estate deal or just to catch up. It's always a fun time, and
it gets better every year. More people every year, better every year. Modern's always growing.
We keep getting
quickly.
more and more animals too.
I
think, but that's okay. The kids love it.
That.
So
the kids love
whatever.
it. Yeah.
So let's go back a little bit on how we got into real estate. I know for me, the test and getting my license had nothing to do with what this job actually is. And I feel like new people that want to get into this industry have no idea that they're two separate things.
Oh, for
sure.
sure.
Like the test versus what is totally different. Do you remember when you got your license and then actually starting?
Yeah, night and day difference. Like, so it's just funny, because when I think back to taking the test and studying and going through that, it was more of like, it's all kind of like the legal side of the ball, and like making sure you don't
calculating lot size or something weird.
Yeah, and things that can get you into trouble and what not to do and all that. And so once I met with Kevin early on, and I met with Logan, and I started kind of going through the Modern boot camp training to learn everything that was going to be in my day-to-day, it was just completely different. You're learning about the documents and how to prepare a purchase agreement and how to help buyers and sellers navigate through each step of the process. So yeah, it was a night and day difference, which I think is, it's funny, but it's wild at the same time, because you would think that
they're preparing you for the job.
Yeah. But I mean, in a way it does, but just in terms of like what you're actually going to be doing every day. I mean, I even had the instructor mention how, things would be a lot different once you actually get involved with a brokerage and get started.
Yeah. It's totally different than the test. I remember I met with Logan, and he's like, yep, go get your license and I'll hire you. I'm like, okay, great. Sat down, 2 weeks, took the test, got my license. And then I came in, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to learn and start boot camp. And then I got a buyer, and they wanted to write an offer. I'm like,
now what?
Do I open a Google Doc? How does this even work? I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I realized nobody taught you, in the whole course, nobody tells you how to write an offer or do any of the actual job itself. And this job you're continuously learning, but I was like, man, I have no idea what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember Kevin actually sat with me in that first buyer consultation, and helped me kind of see it in real time. And it wasn't weird or anything, but it was just very interesting to go from the testing portion to, okay, I need to have some serious people skills here.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, going back, why Modern is so important to us is because without boot camp and learning the actual job, I don't even know how.
You're toast.
If you were an agent coming in and you didn't have any training and you're just coming in with the license and the course, and I have no idea how I would get by, because I would have no idea what I'm doing.
I think that just leads to the most important piece of the puzzle is making sure that the brokerage you're getting involved with is going to have somebody in place or whoever that's going to mentor you and physically help you get through all the beginning steps so you can hit the ground running. And that's why I went with Modern Realty.
All right. So a lot of people ask questions like, what exactly do we do? Do we just open the door and kind of just show people around? Instead, I think they have the wrong impression that like there's a lot that we do, and sometimes it's behind the scenes and you just don't know about it because we're trying to keep you at peace, and we
Right.
take on the bubble gut and the terror
Right.
of certain things, not keeping information from our clients. Obviously, anything that they need to know, they do know. But a lot of times we are doing things in the background, putting out fires and things like that. So do you have an example of something like that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, whether you're going through the sell side or the buy side, there's always, little things that can come up here and there. I guess maybe a good example would be, if you're getting close to a closing deadline or something like that, and you're finding out from the lender that the buyer's trying to secure a certain document or something like that, perhaps. And then I think that when certain things come up like that, it's important that you never want to withhold information from your client, but you also want them to get a good night's sleep knowing that it's very likely certain things will play out. So you don't have to, constantly update every single thing.
All right. So what is your experience with other agents whether it's in our office or other offices, that are bullies and are aggressive? How is that working
The
with
bully
them?
agents?
Yes.
Well, yeah, no, like you said, I think it's super important to keep a really good relationship with agents from not only our brokerage, but from all brokerages. So I'm a huge fan of just staying friends with everybody, because that in the end is going to benefit your client. If you're in a multiple offer situation and you're representing a buyer and an agent from another brokerage is representing the seller, and they like you, trust you as an agent, know that you have follow through and that you're going to help work through if a issue arises, versus be more like the shark type of agent that's very aggressive, then obviously that's going to benefit your buyer client, because you're going to have a much better chance of that agent talking to the seller and presenting it as a way like, I have really good experiences working with this agent in the past. So I think that's super beneficial from any standpoint, whether you're on the sell side or buy side. But then if you're dealing with an agent that's really aggressive, and you have a feeling that they're going to be difficult to work with, trying to navigate through some of the obstacles that can arise in a real estate transaction, then that's not really benefiting that client, because later on, if there's any other transaction or deal that's coming up, that agent is probably a red alert versus another agent that you've worked through issues with easily and helped get everybody to the closing table.
I agree, because the aggressive agents tend to turn the buyer or seller, whoever's on the other side, off. I've had where the other party of that agent didn't know that their agent was putting like such a strong foot down about certain things instead of working together. Obviously, it's supposed to be collaborative. We want both parties to succeed and have a great experience, but there are some that just tend to think that they're helping their client by being rude or disrespectful or over the top about things. Again, I have relationships with agents outside of our office, in our office, that I get excited that I'm going to work with them. I know they're the type of person who's going to work through issues. They're going to help their client understand what's beneficial and what's not, versus shoving it down their client's throat.
Right.
And again, I feel like that always you can tell who are those types of people, even with lenders, is they tend to kind of just talk rudely about other agents to try to get ahead. And like we tell our kids, you don't dull someone else's shine. And again, going all the way back again to coming to modern, Logan always taught us, even if we were new, that doesn't mean that you're not as good because you haven't done this for a long time. You should never put other people down. You don't need to dog any other brokerage, any other agent to make yourself look better. All you need to do
100%.
is stand on what you know and, what you do well. All right, so we'll get ready to finish this up, but we'll go into Midland in general. I'm not from Midland. you are.
Yes.
So over the past 11 years, I've grown to love this city. But let's talk about our favorite things that happen
So I actually talk about this quite a lot with people when they're thinking about moving here. So like Midland to me is a great place to live that's relaxing, but there's still plenty of like family activities to do, good places to eat. So to me, it's like if you go to larger cities and things like that, obviously there's going to be a lot more to do, but we still have things like Dow Gardens, the Chippewa Nature Center, Whiting Forest. We have seasonal festivals, lots of food trucks. There's tons of fun stuff that happens here, but it's also, in my opinion, like a pretty relaxing place to live, which puts my mind at peace about raising my kids here. And they have great schools and things like that. So for me, Midland's always been like where the heart is for home.
I often have thought about moving back to Gladwin, and then I realized I could never do it. Now I've kind of become a recruiter for Midland. Like all my friends that have kids, I'm like, it's great. You'll love it. Move here. Not even because I want you to buy a house with me. I genuinely think you would enjoy it. I couldn't imagine my kids not going to Midland schools. The amount of opportunities and stuff that they get to have. You know, where I'm from, you have one option for a school.
Right.
There's no robotics clubs.
You're
there's
from
Gladwin.
Gladwin area, right?
So there's nothing to do. You can play hockey, you can play football, and that's about it. You know, but all the clubs and stuff, like my kids can do swimming here. They can do indoor sports. But where I'm from, there's no options. You don't get a choice on different schools to go to. You're 20 minutes away from school. You don't, you know, my kids are within a mile. They can easily get there. Every single neighborhood has its own park, which is fantastic. My kids can walk less than a block away and go hang out at a park. And I can trust my neighborhood. Where I'm from, you can't go anywhere unless you're catching a ride with an Amish.
Right.
Like, there's no way to go anywhere. You can go hang out at the ice arena, and that's about it. And it's so great for my kids to have all these opportunities that they wouldn't have somewhere else. So now anyone that has kids are like, hey, I'm thinking about moving. I'm like, come here. Love it. I like it.
Oh, my kids are in robotics, tap dance, ballet, soccer, baseball, you know, all kinds of stuff. They love it here. And if anybody ever jokes about moving, they get pretty fired up about it. So I think we're definitely here to stay.
Yeah, I think that we can find you a place to live if you want to come to Midland. It's a great place. And I could never imagine now leaving. 11 years ago when I moved here, I knew nobody. I had no friends. Everyone I knew lived at least 40 minutes away. And over the course of, you know, this past 11 years, I have just grown to absolutely love Midland. The convenience of getting to a store, to school.
Definitely helps you got in the real estate business while you're over here as well.
And now I know a lot of people because now I'm in the business, so I get to learn all the roads. When I first lived here for the first couple of years, I had no idea where anything was. I remember when I was 16 and I came to Midland because nobody came to Midland. Like if you were going shopping, you went to like Saginaw. Nobody came here. I came to a Loons game and I never seen one-way streets. And I was like, I have no idea where I'm going. This is a nightmare.
Did you turn the wrong way?
I was down by Dow Diamond. And now that I've lived here, it's so funny because we obviously have to drive around all the time. And I know every nook and cranny of Midland now because I've been everywhere. So it is a fantastic place to live. And
For sure.
I'm happy to be here.
So moving back into like the real estate realm, I wanted to ask, what is some of the funniest or craziest things you've seen since you've been in the business?
I have a lot of stories, and honestly, I don't even know if Logan will remember this. Probably not. I do because it was mortifying. So it had to have been maybe like my first month working at Modern, and Logan was showing houses, and he's like, you should come with me and I'll like show you how like a showing works. And I'm like, okay, great. We're going on this whole tour. We get to the first house and Logan's like, okay, like now is the time to practice the opening an ELB. I'm like, great. He hands me all the papers that like the information sheet and the disclosures. He's like, okay, go up there and open it. I'm like, all right, go. I stick my hand in dog poop.
Oh.
At the first showing of 5 tour showing. I'm at a random person's house. This is me practicing opening a lockbox.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that's tough.
Don't know these clients at all. I'm with my broker. I'm just like trying to wipe in the grass. And I'm
Did
like,
Logan know?
Yeah, I told him, and he's like, wash your hands. Like, I'm like, I'm at a random person's house. Like, and I have doo-doo on my hand.
Oh my God.
And I doubt he even remembers this, but it was just so mortifying. I was just like,
yeah, that's funny.
I
and
hate that.
Speaking of like an embarrassing moment like that, that makes me think of a time early on. I was showing a house. The carpet on the stairway was pretty thin and wore down. You know how that can get slippery. And I was wearing dress socks, carrying more stuff than I probably carry now in terms of papers and folders and things like that. And I was going down the stairs and slipped out, busted my tailbone pretty good. They were both in the living room because they had finished going down the stairs, and my folders and papers went everywhere. And yeah, that was definitely a very embarrassing moment.
Yeah, we run into a lot of weird things. I remember one time it was a snowstorm, and I had to go to an open house in Gladwin. And I drove all the way there. It was like this horrible snow ice storm. I got there, and in Gladwin, they don't have ELBs for the most part. It was a combination. It was in a frozen block of ice.
Wow.
I couldn't even get in, so I was like, good thing it's snowing and nobody's coming to this open house, because I cannot get into it. Like, there was no way. I'm like chipping away at it. Like, I don't.
What'd you end up doing? Did nobody come?
I ended up just having to cancel it because
Oh, okay.
I called Sonia. That's who had the listing, and she was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know how you're going to get it. You're like way out of town.
You're way out there.
Yeah,
at
there's
that
no
point.
way of doing it.
No point.
It's always something. I've had to take a doorknob off of a house to get into a house before.
Yeah. So I had another thought that came to mind was a while back, a few years ago. I remember showing a for sale by owner house, and I had a really, really creepy experience where my clients and I, they were there, the sellers were there, and then we went down into the basement. There was a bunch of like weird painted symbols all over the walls, like really creepy. I'm talking like Matt McConaughey and Woody Harrelson and True Detective, if you ever saw that show, that series. But yeah, it was bizarre. I remember my buyers and I looked at each other thinking like, are we going to get out of here? So
It's a dungeon.
We just very carefully kind of, respectfully made our way up and
Excused yourself.
Yeah, luckily I'm here on the podcast, so things worked out.
I think everyone's had like a really weird experience. At least I've had several, and I had one with clients. They're actually friends of mine, so if they watch this, they'll know exactly who they are. But we were showing this really large house. Everything was great. They had some interesting decorative choices, but for the most part, very standard. There's a door underneath the stairs, and my client goes to open it, and she starts screaming. And I'm like, what in the heck? So we turn around, run over there. She had opened this door, and the entire room is like carpeted with all these weird dolls and stuff in it. It's like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, we're talking like 50 like dolls set up with little tables. All the walls are like shaggy carpeted. And
I feel like I've been in a house like that before too.
it was very bizarre,
enough.
but it scared. And then there was like one that was like the size of a small boy sitting in the corner, and she thought it was an actual boy in there. So she screamed, but it was an interesting sight to see for sure.
That's funny. Yeah. You never know what you're going to run into. I mean, I probably have a bunch of stories, but
Yeah, that's for a whole different podcast. We
exactly.
can make an entire podcast
maybe the next
about
podcast will be
the weird
all the
things
stories.
we've seen.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one for sure.
All right, well, that's it for us on the Modern Agent Podcast. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Modern Agent Podcast. Please follow at Modern Realty Midland on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you need to buy or sell a house, please reach out to Modern Realty by going to www.modernrealty.us. Modern Realty, your home, our focus.